Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and to be honest with you, we've not got a lot to talk about today. I know, what a great advert for my own channel. Go away everybody, we're not talking about anything. No, stay with me, we're going to cover a few wee stories, but generally speaking, it's a quiet news day at Celtic. We are stumbling along, waiting for the weekend to come about so we can talk about Celtic versus Kilmarnock, but in the meantime, everything we've spoke about this week is already out there. We've got a couple of daft rumours about Greg Taylor, news of a sacking. We're going to cover things in a little bit more depth today, but aye, just waiting for the season to end now, aren't we? If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. We are less than 100 subscribers away from 49,000. Is it possible to hit 50k by the end of the season? I don't know. Is that maybe asking too much? We'll soon see. Go down below, hit both of those buttons. It's absolutely free. Thank you all for your support. Let's talk about these stories today. The pish related to Greg Taylor going to Rangers, Alan Muir sacking in the SFA, and a story that broke this afternoon about Luis Palma and how basically nobody wants him, which is great news for Celtic. Let's start with the story that broke last night about the sacking / resignation of senior VAR official Alan Muir. That's right, Stephen McGowan reported last night via the Herald that he has departed his role following 3 significant errors in recent times, which obviously included this one. Yep, that one against Hibs. That perfectly good goal where the ball was evidently still in play. But no, for Alan Muir it was out, and he now faces the consequences of his poor decisions. It's not just Celtic that's been affected, both Celtic and Rangers involved in some high profile errors, but Stephen McGowan says that his job as the first full-time video assistant referee is over. And it was short-lived. It wasn't that long ago he was promoted to this specialist VAR role by Willie Collum. Of course, Willie Collum not too long in the job himself as head of refereeing. And the first full-time VAR official is now gone. It's understood that he handed in his resignation or was sacked. All we've got is mutual consent. I'm assuming there's maybe a bit of both in there. We're not exactly clear on it. But he is gone following crisis talks with Willie Collum and Martin Atkinson. So he is away. Apparently he will be available to act as a referee observer in future, but he will no longer take charge of games from the VAR booth of Clydesdale House after a number of controversial VAR calls that drew criticism from both halves of the derby. And yeah, he's gone. Willie Collum, of course, had to sit on that show that he does on YouTube, the VAR review show with Gordon Duncan, and try and keep a straight face and saying that some of his calls have been unacceptable. But he's paid the price. And just like any other job, you know, if you're not good at it, you need to go. And people might hit out with the whole, well, we shouldn't be celebrating somebody losing their job. I'm hardly here celebrating. It's just clear that he was out of his depth and not good enough. And if I was the same as that at stacking shelves in Tesco, or if you were the same as that being an accountant or whatever else, you know, you're going to face the consequences of your actions, and that's what's happened here. So I'm sure this will be great news for many a Celtic fan, but obviously a big question mark about what happens next with the VAR officials. So for the time being, Andrew Dallas and Greg Aitken will remain as full-time VAR officials. I'd imagine we won't hear about any major appointments until next season. We're so close to the end now that I assume the SFA will do their due diligence. Well, it's the SFA, so we don't really know if they'll do their due diligence, but they'll go out and they'll find somebody. Is it time to outsource? Is it time to look at people who we could maybe bring in from down south or abroad to help the VAR process in Scotland? I don't know. There'll be a lot of solutions thrown out there, but ultimately Muir wasn't good enough at his job. If you just read through Stephen McGowan's article, you're reminded of the ones that he was in charge of. You know, Dyson Maida at Motherwell back towards the start of the season, a goal, or I think it was a goal or a penalty, was given against. Sorry, yeah, there we go, the goal. It was ruled out for handball, wasn't a handball. The Liam Scales incident in the Scottish Cup final, or sorry, League Cup final, which admittedly was probably a penalty to Rangers. And yeah, just a lot of different things that Alan Muir has done wrong in his job that affects every team in the league. So yeah, he's gone, and Rest in peace, I suppose. Luis Palma. Let's talk about him. It's been a while since we've had a conversation about Luis Palma, and that's because he's currently on loan to Olympiacos in Greece. That's right, we loaned him out in the January window. There is an option to buy in that loan move, but it looks as though Olympiacos aren't going to trigger that, which means we're in a little bit of a situation with trying to shift him. Celtic are apparently offering him out to other clubs. I think we're going to struggle to get any sort of money for him in this summer window, despite Celtic's wheelings and dealings over the last couple of years where we've made big money on dud players. I think our luck might run out with Luis Palma a little bit after this article came out from the Daily Record this afternoon. Luis Palma, a transfer offer to leave Celtic as long-term admirers get a second shot to land. £3.5 million winger. The Honduran winger is not seeking a return to Parkhead, but Dinamo Kiev could be the answer. The article goes on to detail that Palma is currently on loan at the Greek Super League leaders Olympiacos, but he's not done enough to convince their hierarchy to bring him in on a permanent deal. They do have a £3.5 million option to sign the 25-year-old. There is still time to activate it, but it's unlikely. However, Celtic could have a get-out-of-jail-free card on their hands because, according to Ukrainian outlet DynamoKiev.ua, it has been reported that they have been given the opportunity, Dinamo Kiev that is, to sign Luis Palma. According to their information, Dinamo has been offered a Celtic player named Luis Palma, a left winger of the Honduras national team. We will see how Dinamo will look at him in the summer. Now, what I will say is, very little details in here. I don't know who their sources are. The sources, of course, remain unnamed. A good journalist never reveals their source. I think that whoever Luis Palma's agent is will have a big job on his hands this summer, because he's made it clear in the past week or so through interviews that Celtic is not on the agenda. I think Celtic fans and Celtic themselves have made it clear that Luis Palma is not on the agenda. So we're in a bit of a situation right now trying to recoup any of that money we spent on him less than 2 years ago. I really hope that we do manage to shift him for a good bit of money, considering we spent £3.5–4 million on him. It was a lot of money, and somebody who looked worth it at first, but very quickly we realised, it's a dud signing. So Celtic are going to have to shift him. He hasn't performed well enough at Olympiacos to trigger a move there. Will Dinamo Kiev be the team who come in for him? I hope so, just to make things easy, but I think Celtic may need to cut their losses with Luis in the summer. And by that I mean maybe try and just ship him off for £1 million, £2 million. We are going to lose money, I think. And if we don't, I will be mighty impressed. Let's finish off talking about Greg Taylor, shall we? Because the rumours are they just keep going. And now we've got the likes of Ali McCoist even talking about Greg Taylor potentially going to Rangers. That's right, big Ali himself, that guy that we all just love. He's so funny on commentary, isn't he? Ali McCoist, he spoke about Greg Taylor and the chances of him becoming a Rangers player in the summer. He says that Rangers, could potentially land Greg Taylor depending on what happens there in the summer window. He said absolutely he could get in the team and play. I don't have any doubts about that. He's a good player. In this day and age, it's probably not as big a deal as it was years and years ago, but I definitely think he could play in the team. If you're asking me if he's good enough to play in the team, without a doubt, I think he's good enough to play in the team. Do you think he's good enough to play in the team? Ali, thanks for reiterating, mate. It's not like you repeat yourself a lot. Look, listen, I just want to say this straight off the bat. I just think it's absolute nonsense. We touched on this in last night's stream if you were there to watch it. I don't think, and I'm willing to put money on it, that Greg Taylor will be a Rangers player next season, and too many people are reading into all these rumours, which have really spawned from nowhere. I think it was Football Insider in the first place who reported the apparent interest from Rangers. I can't say this loud and clear enough. Football Insider could be the worst / most unreliable source there is for your football news, and I've proven that many a times over the years on this channel. So it's a pointless conversation to be had, but we've got so many people chipping in now because the mainstream see the clicks in it, and just like me, we're all struggling right now because we're at that point in the season where things get stale. We're just bobbling on to the end. So the Daily Record and and the news channels and everywhere else are all trying to put stuff out there like this because they know it'll get clicks. It's rubbish. I'm quite confidently saying that. And if it's not rubbish and Greg Taylor is standing in the Rangers shirt next year, number one, cool, I'll accept I was wrong. But number two, I would be extremely surprised / I don't want to use the word disappointed because at the end of the day, I don't care that much. But I just would find it shocking if Greg Taylor was to trade the success that he's had with Celtic for utter mediocrity at an uncertain future with Rangers. And I know there might be some Rangers fans watching going, how dare you call us mediocre, how dare you say we're in mediocrity. Look, listen, in terms of the success Greg Taylor has found at Celtic versus what Rangers have done since 2019, let's just be real here, I'm just calling it how it is. But Alan McCoist in that article, or in that phrase that he used earlier on TalkSport, said that it wouldn't be as big a deal as it was years and years ago. There hasn't been a direct transfer from Celtic to Rangers in 120 years since the pre-war period. It would be a big deal. It would be a massive deal. I don't know what Alan McCoist is blabbering on about, to be quite honest, because I, for one, wouldn't be offended. I wouldn't be sitting there writing abuse about Greg Taylor or coming on this channel to lambast him. It's his career at the end of the day, and if he wants to move on, he can move on wherever he likes. But to say that it wouldn't be a big deal or as big a deal as it was years ago, of course it would. Of course it would be a huge deal. People would be sending him threats, and they shouldn't be. That's ridiculous, but people would be. It would be a massive deal. So let's just not downplay the significance of what that would be, Ali, shall we? But yeah, I just don't think it will happen at all. I think it's nonsense, and I can't believe I'm even giving it the time of day on this channel. However, Dinamo Zagreb, remember they were linked with Greg Taylor months ago. Apparently that was one of the top destinations for Greg Taylor on that Bosman type contract. Well, that might be up in the air now because they have sacked manager Fabio Cannavaro. That's, by the way, am I the only one that had no idea Fabio Cannavaro was a manager? Because I double checked this. I was certain he wasn't manager when we played them in December, and he wasn't. He got the job in the 27th of December 2024, so we had played them by then, and that's him gone already. I then looked through the history of Dinamo Zagreb managers, and God Almighty, it's a revolving door there. You think it's bad at somewhere like Watford? Go and look at the Dinamo Zagreb manager history. You will be shocked. Anyway, Fabio Cannavaro, who was the manager apparently interested in Greg Taylor, has now been sacked. He's gone. That move now up in the air, perhaps, if he was the guy that wanted to sign him. So yeah, just keep an eye out on what you hear with Greg Taylor over the next few weeks. Don't fall into any traps. I'm sure that when he's ready to announce it, he'll announce it. Right, I've went on far too long today. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Let me know your opinions to everything down below. And hopefully over the next couple of days, we have a bit more to talk about. But until then, please take care of yourself. And I'll see you all next time.